one of the most important positions and roles they possibly can, which is being a mother and being a wife. So these women are raising the next generation.
Today, we are tackling a topic modern culture openly disrespects, but civilization literally can't survive without the stay at home mom. Not a stereotype, not the insult, but the actual role. Our guest today is, well, Allie, you know her as the Real Fem Sapien, someone who speaks openly about femininity, biology, and the realities feminism refuses to deal with.
Energy of truth on fire. They're calling out the world's desire. From fake ideals to moral decay. They're lighting up the modern age. No one's safe, not the church, not fame. They're flipping the script, rewriting the game.
Feminism told women like fulfillment comes from basically mirroring men. Have they been sold a lie?
I think they've been sold a lie. I am a millennial, so I can say for sure millennial women grew up in a culture that told them that their greatest achievements and their greatest joys in life were going to come from a career. And there wasn't much of a mention about men or children. Most women in my cohort were told to wait until they were 30 in order to get married or to even have kids. And like, let's say you fell in love when you were young, whether you were in high school or in undergrad, a lot of parents to my generation were very against that, people getting together and getting married young because, and the feedback that I had heard from our parents, which would be Gen X and boomers,
Yeah.
was that we were too young, we didn't know what we wanted, and we were just headed straight toward divorce. A very cynical view on marriage and family from those cohorts. I know a lot of people want to sing praises to Gen X, but Gen X is actually the most responsible if you're looking at the abortions of Zoomers.
Yeah.
Millennials, some maybe, I think, if we got started really young, might have had some Zoomers, but for the most part, Zoomers are coming from Gen X, and about a third of Zoomers were aborted. So women have been sold a massive lie, but I think a lot of people are what I like to call instinct injured. That's a phrase that I got off of the internet. It's like they're very divorced from their heart and their soul, and they just listen to what the culture says they should do, and they just act on that, and they don't even check in with their inner being or their inner core. If they can even like reach their inner self, I don't think a lot of people are in touch with their spirituality. I think
Yeah,
most
I
people
agree.
today are spiritually devoid.
Distracted. Yeah, they're not. They're
Mhm.
numb. They're distracted. They got a million things that are not important, taking their attention. So the things that matter most, they ignore. Now, would you say
Mhm.
that the biggest misconception with staying at home and being a wife and being a mother means in women's mind, do you think it means to them doing less than rather than what it actually is, which is the most important job ever?
But there's two ways that I look at the doing less situation. There is women have this idea that if you stay home, that your husband should be able to cover pretty much all of your bases and you barely have to put in any effort and you barely have to put in any work. And if you are working hard at home, then something must be wrong with your marriage, your husband, your lifestyle, his income. I don't think that's true. I don't think being a stay-at-home mom is just driving around getting lattes and doing Pilates all day. Like, no disrespect to the women who do that, but there is your average woman married to your average guy who either can't afford that or isn't even disciplined enough to do something like that, who thinks like that is what my life should be. And they're not being realistic with themselves on what would make their home happy and healthy. And on the other side of it, I think about women working less at home. It's more probable and more likely, unless you're a woman who is in a high hard science profession, unless that is your job, if you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, that's likely going to be the hardest work that you're going to do in your life. And it breaks a lot of women who are homemakers. I think that's a problem with grit and gratitude. However, it doesn't change the fact that like these women are losing their minds all the time on social media.
What I've noticed is that they have this idea that if he can't take care of all the financial responsibilities and she has to even come into any sort of provisioning at all, she feels, well, why even bother being married? Why being a wife? Why be a wife? Why be a mother if I have to provide, right? Like this is how they think about things, but actually it's completely opposite of what marriage is. Marriage, both people are providing. And that's
Mhm.
why it's the teamwork. So I think that that message gets lost a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, there's never been a time in history where women did not work. They either worked in the home or if they had to be forced to work out of the home, I mean, they would try to work even from the home out to merchants, you know, like they would make something, they would spin thread, they would, you know, they had a vineyard, they would be, I mean, the Proverbs 31 woman said that, you know, she made money and she bought a vineyard out of her own purse. So it's like, it's not the fact that like women just didn't contribute financially, they always have contributed to the growth and the production of the family's wealth, right?
Which is
So
why I'm so vocal online about men. And I think men set themselves up before they even say I do by telling women, you're never going to have to work. I don't want you to work. I think that's one of the worst things a man can tell a woman, because it literally tells her, well, I don't need to work. Well, what about inside the home? Right?
she don't need to work,
So
you gotta wash your own laundry.
it sets, and I see this like when I deal with couples and I sit down with couples, every problem I've ever experienced with them, it comes down to the man starting it out with, well, I don't want you to work. He tells her that, I don't want you to work. But then she keeps coming in, well, I want this and I want this. And he gives an inch and she goes for the yard, you know, and it just keeps escalating.
So do you think that like the rise of like burnout, anxiety, and resentment amongst women like correlate directly with like the cultural push?
Why homemakers are burned out. Number one, at the very top of the list, I'm going to bring it to social media and screen time. A lot of women don't understand that social media is a mind altering substance. And women are very, their emotions are very easy to provoke. So if you're already in a bad mood and you're looking for comfort and trying to dissociate from reality, you're turning to your phone, you're probably going to end up feeling worse. And then you're going to, you know, go down the child hating and husband hating algorithm that Instagram loves to provide you with. They like to provoke. And yeah, and so you can make yourself miserable with your phone, with your screen time. I think all women who are homemakers, on average, for the most part, should be good stewards of their time, and that includes screen time. I think some husbands need to be willing to step in and set limitations. Myself and a couple of my other girlfriends, we have limitations on our phones set by our husbands. And it's not because our husbands are controlling. From my position, I asked for help with that area because I had a hard time just getting off of my phone. And everyone could say all day long, well, you're weak, you don't have will. My brain, the human brain, the human female brain, which is 400,000 years old, unless you're a creationist, is not adapted to have a smartphone and to have all that stimulation.
Yeah.
And if you start tracking your screen time, like let's say you set your limit to 60 minutes a day, you'll find that it actually takes up multiple hours in a day of you being on your phone, because social media use, for the most part, you're popping in, popping out, popping in, popping out. So if you have that limit at 60 minutes, but you're popping in and out, it might be that you've wasted 3 hours of your day
Yeah.
going in and out of social media. So that's one reason why I think women are miserable. I really do think a lot of women need to find a way to put their phones down and don't feel embarrassed. My limitations are set to 30 minutes a day on my phone, and I don't have the password to my screen time, and I'm okay with that. Some women would find that to be very controlling, but it's my life, my household. I have things that I need to do, and I have a really tough time with my phone. The other reasons why I think women are miserable when they stay home, number two would have to be that they go down a peg socially if they choose to stay home. In our current culture or secular culture, if you don't have a high status profession as a woman, which most women don't, so I find this perplexing, but if you don't have a high
Wait a
status,
minute, you're saying like a barista, like the stage 5 level barista at Starbucks is not a high profession?
yeah,
They could
not
whip
at
they could whip
all.
those mocha fraps pretty good, okay? They could whip them really quick.
They should do that at home then. That's what I think. I think they should get married. I think their husband should buy them a nice latte machine. It should be their hobby, and they should have delicious, cost-effective coffees at home,
I
which is
agree.
actually something a lot of homemakers do. So it's interesting. Actually, fun fact, I know a lot of ex-barista homemakers.
Well, I'm sure that's where they found their husband. The husband went in there to go get his coffee in the morning, and then, you know,
Mhm.
good good spot.
Yes, and they're actually very skilled in the kitchen. So they know how a bean should be roasted, how long it should be sealed, how to steam the milk properly. My point is like they can make an excellent cup of coffee like a professional, but they're doing it for their family at home, and it's probably more rewarding and more fulfilling. And so if you don't have a high status profession, which I think a lot of women would equate that to being a lawyer or a doctor because they watch TV too much or they watch social media too much. Most women are not doing that. Most women are not earning six figures unless they're from a city these days on average. So if you don't have that high status profession and you choose to stay home, it really hurts women's self-esteem. But I think that's just focusing on the wrong things, because it's like I don't know a lot of smart lawyers anymore. That might have been the case before DEI, but now it's like, oh, you're a lawyer. That's cool. Okay. Like I'm more impressed if a woman says, yeah, I have 3 kids, I have 5 kids. And another reason why I think women spin out at home is because they don't understand the spiritual joy and the spiritual potential of being a homemaker. Like when I
Yeah.
started homemaking, I knew that I liked staying home because I knew I didn't like having a boss that I had to answer to, like a corporate boss. But I didn't have as much joy in it as I do today. But there were so many skills that I didn't know because I wasn't creatively curious. I was kind of like twiddling my thumbs, doom scrolling, yeah, I could cook, I could clean, whatever. I have all these machines. But then once I realized what all I can do, I can sew, I can cook from scratch. I can also make my own lattes. I can make homemade candles. I can find really unique ways to save money. I can work out at home without even having to like get in the car and drive to the gym. I have a great home workout plan. I can go on walks with my kids in the middle of the day whenever I want. I mean, I make way better food now than I did when I first started staying home. And the social aspect has been very enriching as well because I know so many homemakers due to my zip code. So if more women, I think, just chose to go all in with their home, I think they could learn to love homemaking.
Yeah, I would say I said, like, I mean, out of all the accomplishments in life that I've had, my greatest accomplishment was actually becoming a father, like seeing my son, like being dad, right? Watching the little mini me, like dressed like me, and then have the attitude like me, and be like, oh yes, he's gonna be another troublemaker. Like I know how to handle this one, right? And it's like that to me was the greatest joy. Like there's nothing I've accomplished in life that was more meaningful than being dad. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that until they become a parent, and they kind of minimize being that role, being a mother, being a father. It doesn't seem as important. Societal wise, it's like we kind of minimize, I think, both roles. Like if you're a stay-at-home mom,
Mhm.
oh, you're less than. But oh, like if you're proud that you're a dad, like why aren't you proud that you've accomplished? No, the accomplishments are there, but they're not nowhere near as important to me as being dad, right? And that kind of looks down upon. Um, why do you think there's a resentment towards children these days, though?
I think it's just state down propaganda. There's a lot of elites, trillionaires, globalists who really find the human race itself to be a problem. They are, I want to say, like, they hate people. They think there's too many people on the planet. And there's the state down propaganda that says that there is too many people for the resources that are on the planet, and that there's all this climate change. And so, like, to be an educated and good person is to acknowledge that the human population is too high and we have to find ways to reduce it, to reduce our carbon footprint, and blah 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 blah. So if you're like an educated upper middle class woman, then naturally you're like, well, I wouldn't want to have too many kids. That
Like
would
somebody
negatively
that listens
impact
to
everything.
like somebody with the last name of Gates.
I Yes, probably Bill Gates, but these ideas come out of university, and everybody loves sending
Yeah.
their daughter to university. And then the other thing is too is women like to bond through complaining, and I mean, I do it too, and I actually quite like it. I like when I can go to a girlfriend and say, "Man, this sucks," but a lot of women want to use complaining about their kids as a way of like trauma dumping to bond with other women. And your average woman probably is going to like hop on that and enjoy the commiseration, even though it's going to make their life worse. They're going to have a stank attitude at home. But women just kind of can't stop doing it. I think women have always done the sewing circle thing. I just don't think it makes sense to complain about your children because, for the most part, it's either something that you've influenced genetically or environmentally. So if your kid is acting up, like either they're a wild child because you're wild, or you are just a terrible parent when it comes to disciplining. So it's kind of like a self-report when you're complaining about your kids, kind of like how it's a self-report when you're complaining about your husband to your girlfriend. It's like, you are talking negatively about your person. to another
Yeah.
woman
Yeah.
to get emotional validation. It's
Well, that's why I
terrible.
always say words are important. They matter because words affect thoughts and thoughts affect action. So, like when you were talking about why you think women have burnout, anxiety, and resentment toward their husbands, those are all valid points. But I think that there's something that many people don't talk about online. And after my years of talking to couples, it always rings true, right? Like when I talk about women having a problem with time management, prioritization, I cannot be more dead on with that. Like women really struggle with what is important, right? Because they create these ladder systems in there, and it starts very young. It starts even before, they start dating. They have this ladder system. Okay, date, find a guy, get engaged, get the ring. That means 5 parties leading up to the wedding. Then once they get married, the babies need to come. Then the baby showers. Then once that happens, then they need to have the career. And then once the career happens, now I need to travel the world, right? So they create these ladder systems. And within those ladder systems, if the husband comes in and says, whoa, 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 listen, you're not taking care of my needs. You're putting materialism ahead of this relationship. All of a sudden, she doesn't see it as, oh, maybe he's trying to help me or he's really looking. No, she sees it as, oh, you're in my way. You're in my way of me achieving my goals. So now it becomes this competition of back and forth, and they're not really able to be grateful for being a wife, being a mother. Now they're like, no, you're in my way of having my goals. And I think that this is like a real issue that I'm noticing with women, like pattern recognition.
Mhm. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I mean, even I fall into that mind trap sometimes. So every day is like a struggle or a goal for me to try to reframe my mind because in all honesty, let's say I'm having a bad day. I think my husband's in my way. Maybe he made me like 5 minutes late to somewhere, which I mean, if you're 5 minutes late, like nobody on the other side of that is going to care. Like in all actuality, the life I have, apart from God, it's fully because my husband has decided to support my decision or like our desire for me to stay home and have small children. But it's like you can get so caught up in the small details that are very inconsequential in the big picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like when what we've done as wives and we became expert in in our husband's flaws instead of becoming an expert in the good things he does. So like I always say that we're supposed to be on his side of the table. Like when you think of how a union is supposed to be in a marriage, we're supposed to be standing alongside our husbands as helpmates against the enemy on the other side. But if we turn into that enemy on the other side, pushing our husband and competing with him, we're no longer the helpmate anymore. Where do you think children fit into the conversation when both parents are exhausted and overstimulated? Like, how does that work, even in your own day to day life?
I think people just get so caught up, women get so caught up in this is exactly how I have to be a mom. And if it doesn't go
Right.
this way, I'm doing it wrong. Dads, they're much more
We're chill.
survival based.
Yes, like
Yeah.
they're sleeping on the ground in the hallway. They're fine. Leave them there. Just put a blanket over them. They'll wake up and they'll get in bed.
Yeah, I mean, genuinely, that is how it goes. Because I had a hard time getting my first to bed when I had my second, when I was very nearly postpartum. And lo and behold, they just found places to sleep all around the house. But when you're tired and exhausted, I think you really have to, one, be willing to be vulnerable with your spouse and say, hey, I really need some help. I need a break. Like, I'm losing it. I don't want to snap on anybody. I'm not being a very good mom right now, good wife. I'm not being a good dad. I'm not being a good husband. I need time to myself. And that's kind of what we do. Actually, we're both stay at home parents because my husband, I'm in an age gap marriage. So we both stay home, which is really great for raising children. But even so, we're no support parents. So we don't have any close by family. So it's just us taking care of our kids pretty much 24/7, 365. We have a great community, but at the end of the day, it comes down to us too. And burnout, believe it or not, still happens. Kids can try you. And they have bad days, particularly when they're going through a growth spurt. So what we do is there's one day a week, every week, that is my day. And my husband comes and serves me, not necessarily waiting on me hand and foot, but we look at my goals. I want to get this, this, and this done. And so outside of like nursing or, helping with kids a little bit, he takes on most of the burden and most of the chores. And then he has his day of the week. It's the same thing. What are your goals? And I serve my husband and I clean the house. I do some cooking, I take care of the kids, I just try to keep them out of his hair so he can get what he needs done. And those days can include errands, or they can include things like self-care, not to use like a new age term.
Yeah, like it's just like you time. Like if you wanted to like get together with some girlfriends in town, that's when you're gonna go out and then maybe have brunch or something, and or run errands or just do you time. Same thing with him. If he wants to do a project with some buddies on the car, that's the day that he's gonna work on it.
There's a lot of couples that will say, like, we can't afford to do that. Like, I know you hear it, Allie. Like, you probably hear people that go, I don't have the luxury. They'll say stuff like, I don't have the luxury to do what you do. But I mean, when you actually factor in like what they pay for child care, and then like all the
Mhm.
other things that they're having to like supplement through income when they could just simplify their lives and stay home with the kids, like, how do you help somebody who has that kind of mindset?
I hear that a lot. For the record, my situation is unique. Having both parents stay home, not having to work, like not even one of us really working from home. I do some online stuff, sure, but that is unique. However, a lot of my friends, because I know many moms. I know more moms than your average woman, I think, and I know more moms that have like 4, 5, 6 kids than most women. So I can see how they're getting it done. When I go over, help them with chores, and I chit chat. So there's lots of opportunities, but I think a lot of women just have a hard time having that mentality of, I need to give my husband a break, and I just need to serve him, and I need to get it done. And because I think it makes them feel wrong, because everything's saying that he should be doing everything to make your life easier. But that is a selfish way to
Okay.
live. I mean, I've thought about it a time or two, because we're, my day, his day, and stuff like that. I'm like, man, would be nice if I could just be a selfish, terrible woman. Like, but I know that's terrible and that's fleshy. And it's like, no, this man takes care of me. I need to take care of him, do what he needs. But there's lots of ways to give your working husband a break, right? So once a week, I'm going to take care of the kids in the evening. You do what you need to do, decompress, come back to bed when you're done. I got everything. I'll do the dishes and all that stuff. But also, there's this idea that working husbands come home and do nothing. I actually don't think that is true on average. I think they're working 40 to 60 hours a week and coming home to a second shift. And I think a lot of guys are going to do what their wives ask of them if they're feeling burned out, because homemakers do get burned out. But I want to say, like, if you're a homemaker and you're feeling burned out all the time, number one, check your mental health. But number two, you got to get rid of your stuff. Okay. Because the more stuff that you have, it's the more things you got to keep up with. Like, I don't care if each one of your kids has 5 shirts, 5 pants, and that's your laundry situation, and we're done. Because I
Keep
hear
your
about the
laundry
clothes all
load
the time.
low. It's gonna be save money on water, detergent,
Mhm.
like that. Good right there.
Yeah.
What would you say, like the lie of the dual income though? Do you think there's a lie of the dual income? Like it makes people feel richer, but ultimately they break even, or even actually they put their family in worse situations?
And now a break for our sponsors. What's up, guys? MaCool here. I am holding one of the brand new flavors from First Form, the maple butter. And this is what I use every single morning. It is by far the best products, and I've tried a lot of products in the market. First Form, 100% third party tested. And on top of that, they taste amazing and they're great for you. So if you haven't tried it, definitely do so. I've added my link down below. The best flavor. I use this in my pancakes in the morning. I also do it in my yogurt. So there's so many ways that you can put the level 1. And of course, I do try the formula one, which is more of an isolate protein. But if you're looking for a way that tastes amazing and doesn't give you all the bloat and all the nonsense that you deal with other protein powders, this is it. Check it out and let me know. I'm going to add a link. If you grab it, make sure you let me know and I'll send you a little free gift.
Yes, it's bad for really small children under the age of 5 to not have a parent who stays home. And, when they're really young, they need their mom to be the primary caregiver for the simple fact that she lactates. But I know that's too hard for some women to do these days anyway. You're missing out on a lot if both of you are working. If you're Christian in particular, how are you supposed to make your children into disciples for Christ if you're both working 40 hours a week? That's one thing. The
Yeah.
other thing is Americans are very materialistic. They feel like they have to have the nice house, the nice car, the nice decorations, and I'm one to talk, like my setup is very cute. However, there's lots there's lots of ways that you can be frugal. I think most people are talking about how they can't afford to stay home. Honestly, I think couples have a financial education problem, and I think women in general spend more money than they should.
Oh no, they do.
Like they like to
That's
go
already been proven.
shopping.
That's in data. You're absolutely right. They do
I mean,
spend
just
more
in your
and they
hair,
make less. And they make less. And then
Mhm.
they
just
try
just
to
in
make
your
it
hair
up like
product, you guys spend more than men do.
correct. And then they'll try to like their counter argument and debate whenever I bring that up is, well, I'll just go work for what I want. Like they love to say that, but then, and all honestly, they do it out of resentment. They complain the whole way through, you know. So it's like, do you
Mhm.
really want to do that? No. So I always say that simplify your life. You have to simplify your life. Find out what's
Yeah,
important. Pick and choose your battles.
it's like, be a minimalist. I mean, our good friend
Yeah.
Cappy is like Mr. Minimalist, himself. And me and him talked about it for a while, and it took me even guys need to be a minimalist too. We think that we're minimalist, but then it's like we have like we may not have a bunch of stuff, but we have like subscriptions to stuff. We have, things that make our lives easier, we think, but really they just cost more, and they really don't do make your life that much easier. You can take the responsibility and structure things a lot better, you know. So no, I think the minimalist thing is easier, and I think that you know also where you live, where you choose to live, also determines whether or not you're going to have a dual income or not. Like if you live out here where I live in LA, yeah, you're probably having a dual income. I mean, it's pretty expensive. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be that bad.
And I think the
Mhm.
goal, like today, was to for the viewers to make them to help them understand. One, this is not about how to become a homemaker, right? Because a lot of women will do that. Well, maybe I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom, right? You'll hear that from women. And I'm like, this is not about being a stay-at-home mom. This is about making the best of what is given and
Other
how to prioritize that.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think like what women have been fed is that being a mother is unbecoming. Like your career, like you're like yeah, you're natural, you're genetically able to bring children into the world. That's great. Like that's how they just dismiss it. But are you going to be an astronaut? Are you going to be like the next world leader? Like I mean, and I don't
Mhm.
think that people realize is like being a mother is like the most important thing that guys want. We want mothers. We want wives that become mothers, not necessarily career driven, because we want legacy. We want children. We want something you know, to carry on our traditions that we teach them. Like we want those things. And it's kind of hard to compete sometimes with having the career and then the motherhood. Like, do you think you could do if you were ever had to put in a situation where you could be both? Like you would think that something is suffering at some point, whether it's going to be your career or it's going to be, your children at home. Like, do you think it's even possible to do that?
No, I don't think it's possible to do it all, have it all at the same time. Number two, I put myself in a very good position when I was dating. I tried to maximize my strengths and minimize my weaknesses. And I was able to marry someone, to the degree that he is able to take care of me so well that if something were to happen to him, it would be a very long time. It would be a few years before I had to work. And women don't realize that that is an option. There are men who, are ambitious, whether they're younger or older, what have you, who understand that certain paperwork needs to get done, life insurance policies need to happen, and they're going to take good care of you. And it's not going to be what the feminists and your average woman, how they like to fearmonger other women. It's not going to be all of a sudden your little orphan Annie out here in the street with some kids and you don't have, a pot to piss in. It's not like that. If you marry a guy who understands that paperwork needs to happen. But I don't think that you can do the 40 hours working a week thing and be a really in touch wife, because you have to be in touch with your husband, which means you have to spend time with him. And then also being an in touch mother, being able to really understand and know your children, being intimate with your husband and also being intimate with your children. I know a lot of people, don't necessarily understand that verbiage, but it's like, there are lots of ways that you can pass up the opportunity to get closer to your kids as a mom, especially if you're like shooing them away. But if you were to lean into their request for affection, you might start to pick up on a couple of things about them. You're like, wow, that is actually very neat. I didn't know that about you. Not that you can communicate all these things when they're really small, but you can, as they get older, you can let them know, like, hey, you have this quality that I really admire. And, it shines in these contexts, but maybe we got to watch it in these other contexts.
And if women are constantly distracted with calls and career and that kind of thing, they're not going to be present.
Right. Well, a lot of women are not working for the right reasons. It's
Mhm.
different to work because my husband asked me for help with paying the bills. Biblically, that's an appropriate thing to do. You should work and get a job. It's one thing to work for that reasoning, but it's another thing to work because you want to look cool to your girlfriends, which is why I think most women are working. I have seen a lot of women put their family on the back burner, even if they're working from home or being a social media influencer. I've seen women make their husband and children into characters. And I think that that's actually very disgusting. I don't think you have to go down that path. There's different convictions that you can have. But, like saying earlier, even working, like, let's say you had a 10 to 20-hour week job, I don't think you necessarily want to have hard commitments because emergencies do happen. And I'm thinking about all the time that I spend in my home. And it's like if I wanted to do something that was 10 to 20 hours a week, that was very intensive, that would take away from my time, probably like cooking, cleaning, or working out. So if I choose something, it should be to the benefit of my family in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just a benefit to me so that it can uplift my mood so that I can be of better service to my husband and kids.
Agreed. So, what would you tell women today choosing a career path instead of having children or a husband?
I would hope that if you're in your mid 20s, you can get it together kind of quickly because dating does change the older you get. And then
Mhm.
I talked about this in a video. If you're waiting until 30 to get married and have kids, like you can. And if you're a healthy woman, you should be able to, if you wanted to, have 3 children in your 30s doing that. But your average one, I don't think, is that healthy. But you are putting yourself in a position, typically, most women start to feel that pressure. So then you're going to end up with a two under two situation, which is like I'm gonna get married at 30, and then okay, maybe when I'm 32, I'm comfortable, I'll have a baby. Okay, maybe I'm comfortable, I want to have one more, so they have a friend, or I'm gonna push to the limit, I'm gonna try to get pregnant quick after that. 202 is very hard on your body and on your psychology. Not every woman is built for it. I know a lot of women who have done it, who do it well and do it with grace, but they're very, spiritually connected to the Lord. I think if you're a secular woman, honestly, I think it's going to break you. I really do. But you don't have to put yourself, to the breaking point if you apply a little bit of effort with dating. I mean, don't be afraid to be a pick me.
I say
I've
pick-me's are
always
the ones
said
that win.
a pick me is not a diss. It's literally a compliment.
I would agree with you. Like I think even for dads, like the age gap between children is necessary. Like my kids are 4 years apart. Like my daughter is 4 years older than my son, and now they're both adults, and it's great because I don't have to, you know, they're not making a mess in my house. But it's like I think there is like a gap that should be needed, and when you try to put that gap like too close, you actually kind of rob your oldest from the time that you could have with them before the second one comes. It's like we had the perfect age gap of 4 years, and it was like cool because I got to do all the things with the first one, and then when that one's going to kindergarten, cool. Now we got the second one coming in, and it's like, all right, sweet. I could do all those same things. When you have them both, like one's, you're trying to potty train the other one while the other one is like, still in diapers, crawling. It's a lot, even when you have both parents there. So I think what you're saying is true. Like, kind of like force that time to happen in your late 30s or early 30s. That's a lot of stress on both the mom and dad.
Yeah, but that's what happens when women decide to go the education or career path in lieu of like trying to use their fertile window wisely. And if you really were that academic of a woman, to be straight up with you, you should be able to have an undergraduate degree by the age of 22. And if you're really hard charging, you should be able to have a graduate degree by the age of 24, manage your finances well, don't bury yourself under student loan debt. Go ahead and get married and have a really high paying part-time job. But most women are not going to do that or execute that. I've met some. They're very rare. I already know that I'm not that kind of woman, so I didn't sign up to do that. But some women think they are because they're lying to themselves, and so they want to, oh, like I can do it all, have it all. You can't at the same time, but over the course of your lifetime, you probably can have it all if you plan accordingly. But women are not planners; they're
Yeah, they
vibers.
don't. They're not good with structure. Like I say that all the time. And I kind of want to like move this conversation into this next thing about you, because I think people automatically will stereotype mothers or stay-at-home moms with, oh, this is all you know. You don't have an education. What's going to happen if he leaves you? Like I hear that argument. But you, it's not like that's all you've ever done. Like you're a veteran. People don't know that.
Yep.
How did you being a veteran help you in the role that you are today?
She got tactical.
Structure, correct? Structure, boundaries.
Structure was
Help.
one thing. I learned there's so many lessons that I learned. I only served for 4 years, and different lessons came up along the way. So I'll try to choose some of the best ones. But when I joined, I was trying to get out of a bad environmental situation for my upbringing. So I knew that I couldn't make decisions for myself. I was so young. I tried to do the undergrad thing. I felt overwhelmed picking a major. Okay, maybe women are not evolved for making decisions like that. Okay, so I was like 18, 19, dropped out of college twice. I'm freaking out. But my mom always told me, okay, first of all, don't get pregnant as a teenager. She was just like, don't get pregnant. And then she told me this other thing. She said, if you're not going to go to college, join the military. I was like, okay, well, I'm able bodied, can't pick a major, I'm stressed, I dropped out twice, my life is ending. I am joining the military. I'm going to figure this out because I knew they were going to give me 3 hots and a cot. So 3 hot meals and a bed.
Yep.
And I knew that I was going to be able to get money for college like that too, because I wasn't giving up on the college dream. I still wanted to get an education, but it's just because I like learning. If you don't like learning, I don't think you should go to undergrad. I mean, and learn something that you really could take in and apply it to your life, because I have an undergraduate degree and a bachelor's of science of anthropology. On the surface, that's like one of those useless degrees you're not going to be able to use for anything. However, I was able to turn it into a YouTube channel. I'm a professional people watcher. I love watching people, but it gave me a lot of exposure to different cultures and how they raise kids differently, right? And that has influenced me as a mom, I think, in very positive ways. But I joined the military, and it gave me a different set of expectations. Although I didn't enjoy being part of the DEI regime, because I do think I was a DEI hire in some capacity, because it was during the Obama's Hope and Change administration is when I joined. So, but going there, when I got out and I went to undergrad, I was shocked. But I was shocked at all the stupid things, well, what I thought was stupid, what the stupid things that your average woman who was in college was concerned about. They're like, oh my gosh, I need a dress. He hasn't texted me back, and da 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 da. And in my head, I was just so happy if I had food, a hot shower, and air conditioning, because that's how the military. My first unit was a combat arms unit. I'm not going to say it was like super tough. Okay, I did not necessarily do well. I actually developed a nervous tick being in a combat arms unit because I was a woman trying to be a man. I didn't know that. I just wanted a job, guys. I just wanted a job.
Did you go in open? Did you go in undesignated, and then they designated you, or what?
No, I signed up to be a medic. They ended up calling it a combat medic specialist. But I thought I was going to be, working in a clinic. I didn't realize they were trying to put men and women, trying to make them as co-ed as possible. And I had a very hard time with that because I took in a lot of propaganda. So when I got there, it was like the guys were very mean to me. And this is not to say that they were misogynist or anything like that. Like, hear me out. I invaded the boys club and I didn't know. Nobody told me. So they were like, who the heck is this little short, weak woman? We got to run with her. We got to take her everywhere. And I could never run as
carry
fast
her
as them.
along now with this, like.
Yeah, I was holding them back. And eventually I got in shape. I was overweight in the military, lost a bunch of weight, and was very athletic. But I was successful in the military. And it taught me discipline, structure, fitness. I started running when I was in the Army. I started lifting when I was in the Army. I made E5, I think, within 3 years. So I was an NCO. I did all the stuff, but I like to tell people that that job was so hard for me that it kind of beat me into the kitchen. It like beat me into femininity. I was like, I did the hard work.
It breaks you down to build you back stronger. That's the whole point of the military, right? So like, that's why I said how did it coincide with you being a mom? Because I think that's one of the reasons why you're so aware and you can point out like both sides. Which is what I love about you. You always like point out what women do.
I want to highlight something before we wrap up, because your husband was part of the dragon ship with me and Thor when we first started. And I say that, with what every great family has is a strong husband that's able to lead him correctly. And I would say, you know, to credit you is like we have to honor him in the sense because he has put you in a position to be able to do what you do so well on YouTube, on you know when you're doing your shows or even being a mom. He's put you in the perfect position. And I always say like a good leader is somebody that gives the people underneath them the tools that they need in order to succeed at the roles that they have them in. So like he chose you as a wife, and then he equipped you with what you need to be a good wife and the mother that you are. Um, and like I don't think a lot of people realize that. A lot of women want to acknowledge that like where they're at, whether it's successful at being mom or successful in their household, is a lot of it's due to the leadership that they're under. And do you think that there's a power struggle that most people don't want to acknowledge, that like women would still feel the need to be independent in that sense and they can't give that acknowledgement?
I think women just feel bad about saying a man is paying their way. But it's
Mm.
true. Even if you're a woman who is working, on average, the husband is earning more. And let's say you don't have a man in your life. If you are making below a certain income, you have access to government programs. Male taxpayers pay most of the taxes, so you're still depending on a man. You're still using a man's money. I mean, even most women's last name, you trace it down enough, even if you like grew up in a single mother home, like it's going to be a man's last name. The world that we live in and function within was built by men. The ease of our lives as well has been aided by men, either for better or for worse. Some things I don't think we're very good making women's workload so light that they have time to spin out and be in their head all the time. But I don't feel bad saying that a man is paying my way. And you know what? Locally, I actually have had some people kind of make fun of the fact that I'm a homemaker, or that I depend on my husband or my lifestyle and all that, which most people I don't think have that sort of experience where you have a social media profile platform and people who live around you are laughing at you for choosing to be a stay-at-home mom. I don't necessarily like that, but at the end of the day, I don't care because I know what my life looks like compared to your average woman, and I know what my husband is doing for me, and I know that a lot of women, if they could have that, I think that they would.
Hmm.
Women want to be very, strong and hard charging and independent when they're young. I felt it too. I look back at all the opportunities that I chased and that I took to completion. I look back at that and I just really wanted to work hard and I wanted to get my 4.0 GPA and I wanted to get promoted and I wanted to get athletic and all that stuff. And then I just got to a point where I got tired, and
Hmm.
I think it's part of aging. That's one thing. And the other thing is being a mom. There's a different, competency hierarchy with being a mom. And I want to get to the top of that. But you couldn't interest me in pursuing a degree plan right now. Even if my kids got older, I don't know that I would go back to school. I would want a job that I enjoyed, that worked with my schedule, that allowed me
Yeah.
to be available for my grandchildren, but also be available for my husband in all contexts, be available for him too. Like my job is to provide morale for my family. And to reference the military, there's a program called MWR, Morale, Welfare, and Recreation.
Or is there
So
recreation? Yeah.
yes, yes. So they're in charge of that little organization, which different people get assigned to. They're in charge of providing troops with the morale, the welfare, and the recreation, and that it can involve families. But that is what in a military unit, that's what a chaplain is often in charge of. Which he could be Christian, he might not be, but he's in charge of like that spiritual morale building thing. And like I look at what I do in my home and that's what I'm supposed to provide for my family: morale, welfare, recreation, keep spirits high, keep hopes high, make sure people go to sleep every day knowing that they are loved. And that's a wonderful job. And if more moms did that, we would have less problems in our society.
So I made a tweet yesterday that kind of pissed off a lot of people, and it has to do with stay-at-home moms. So I want to know like how pissed off you would be if I read it. I said to all the stay-at-home moms, I said stop acting like you're a full or part-time spouse. I said you got all day to get ready for your husband when he gets home, so take the initiative to drain his balls. Don't let him go home. Don't let him go to work without his balls drained, and do it eagerly. Like I know it sounds crude, right? But the idea of like like when you prioritize your day, like you prioritize your husband, right? I'm
Mhm.
sure that like he's up there on the list. He's not like on the very bottom list as an option, like, oh yeah, like, if I have energy and I'm bored and have nothing else better to do, then I'll drain his balls. Right. Like, do you can you talk about like the importance of like not just the kids and making sure the kids are and the morale is good with the kids, but with the husband? How much do you prioritize that and like do you see that as a priority?
I mean, it goes back and forth, right? I mean, the goal is that, I have God, my husband, I suppose myself, and then my kids, if I had to like put myself in the hierarchy. So it goes back and forth between, how cognizant and aware I am able to like stay on the task of keeping my husband at the head of our household in all considerations. It's a little bit harder when I'm newly postpartum, when I just had a baby, but there's still things that you can do. You can still hug your husband, you can still kiss your husband, you can still compliment him. Uh, Aside from those moments, I recently had a really wonderful holiday with my husband, and I got him a lot of really good Christmas gifts. I studied him for like a year. I don't know if he got more interesting or if because I mean, I swear when I first was dating him, I didn't know what to get him. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, okay, undershirts, socks,
Oh God, not that.
Well, I mean, he still liked that stuff, but he just
We
had
always
his
they're
big
useful.
life.
They're useful. We love them
Yeah.
because we could use them.
Mhm. Well, I again, I couldn't tell if he'd gotten more interesting or if entrepreneurs had really developed some good products or if the culture was shifting or what. But I just had so much creativity this time with trying to curate his Christmas gifts. And a lot of men I don't think are even considered in that way. So he had a really wonderful Christmas. All the gifts that I got him were on point. I mean, he would even tell you guys that. And it was a very heartwarming experience for him because he makes Christmas possible. Now, granted, there's men who some guys aren't even getting one gift from their wife for Christmas. So it's it's different. I do forget sometimes to try to keep my husband first when everything gets all like cloudy and out of order. But I had a girlfriend tell me this. She's very Christian. She said the only way up is down, meaning the only way up is to submit to your husband. Just bow down to your husband. And I know people are not going to like that verbiage, but if you try it, I mean, it tends to be very effective. Now, as for like intimacy, all these women who are moms talking about like I can't figure out how to hook up with my husband, they're lying. Okay, they're lying. If you are attracted to your husband, you won't be able to control yourself when you're ovulating. Like you will track that man down. You'll find him. You live in the same place. Okay, like let's say you're into co-sleeping, you got a couch, you got a floor, you got like a guest room, like there's options, right? So if a woman is, forsaking their husband's intimacy totally and completely, like that's a choice. Even if your husband was the least helpful man on the planet, like never helped you with chores, never helped you with dishes, if you were attracted to him, you would still find him. Okay, so I don't
Yeah.
think it's the whole like, well, I'm stressed with the chores and the this and the that.
Yeah.
If you are that stressed, you let your husband know. I can guarantee he'll do something to make it better. However, yeah, I'm calling cap on that one.
Like it comes down to this. I think that women do underestimate that the real power that they have is being a wife and a mother. Really, that's where it's at. I wanted to bring you on here because you're a great example of this. And I thank you for coming on. So we're gonna catch up soon again and we'll see you on the next one.
Glenn walks in with a